everybody. Welcome to the latest of the PressBox Party, episode number 5. We got one for each finger now, Tim Ring.
5? I thought it was 3. Who's counting?
Who's counting?
The first 4 must have been fantastic.
Well, the first one was just us, so I don't know.
Oh, you're counting that one?
Well, it was episode 1.
I guess it was intriguing. Anyway, what's up, my man? What is going on today in the Bay Area?
It's freezing. I woke up this morning and it was my temperature in my car said it was 34 degrees and there was actual frost on my windshield. And unlike my time in Minnesota, I do not have an ice scraper handy. So it took about 5 minutes before I could leave the driveway to take my son to school.
Yeah, I live in Phoenix, as you know, and we put the heat on today for the first time in about 5 years. But we are going to get no sympathy from anybody east of Colorado. So we best move on. Move on.
Listen, hey, there's a reason why we live in Arizona and California, right? I mean, there's not a lot of days. But it's not too shabby, and I'm, hey, 1 or 2 cold days I can handle. It's all good.
Look, I get to it like 50 degrees. I can wear my sweaters today. From my days of living in Colorado and Chicago, I can bust out my old sweaters as long as I can still fit.
I'm rocking the latest gibberish T-shirt, which there's going to be more to come on that soon. We're not going to be.
Yeah, you know what, gibberish. Yeah, by the way, you keep doing that. Gibberish better start paying us some money. You keep shopping their bad. You're going to shop their bad clothes on our podcast. I mean, we've got 300 viewers a week.
Do we?
Here on No Filter. I don't know. I hope so. If you add up everybody on all platforms,
we're probably
actually, we're going to have a lot of viewers on this week's show, Dave, because I'm excited about this one. I've been excited about all 5 or 4 or 3 or how many we actually have done, because we have got one of the best NBA players of the 80s and 90s, and maybe even all time. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. But he was a lot of fun. We recorded this a few days ago. Tom Chambers, who had a great career playing in Phoenix and Seattle. It was the MVP of the All-Star game, the NBA All-Star game back in 1987. Quite a character, and really it was a great half hour. And man, did he spin some yards for us? Did he not?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He gave us a lot of stuff. Like I'm gonna have to go through and cut a couple little 1-minute teasers. There's a lot of stuff that we could throw in there. So with that, I'm gonna roll the taped part with Tom Chambers, and Tim and I will be on for a live chat during this. If you want to hit us up on the live chat, and we'll be back on to vamp a little bit on the back end as well.
All right, there he is, as advertised. Our guest this week on the PressBox Party, 16-year NBA veteran, 4-time All-Star, scorer of over 20,000 points. The great Tom Chambers. You know, Tom, they call you legend. Here in Phoenix on the Suns broadcast. You're a member of the Suns broadcasting crew. You told me the other day you don't like that, Tom. You don't like being called the legend.
It just makes me sound old, like there's no other titles available, you know? And he's like, yeah, like my license plate says has been. I'd rather be called that, I think, than legend, you know? I mean, at least I was something, you know, but no, it does embarrass me. I kind of have to look away whenever there's a highlight or Tom Leander's trying to say something nice about me, because I'm just used to people, you know, poking fun at me and calling me names and stuff. Not that kind of a name, you know what I mean?
Well, listen, we're glad you're with us today for a few minutes or so. We don't talk shop here on the PressBox Party. We don't talk. There's plenty of places to go to get NBA conversation. We kind of take a trip down memory lane and talk about your career and some old war stories. And certainly, when Dave and I were talking about who we wanted on this week's show, I said, I got the guy. We got to get Chambers. The guy he's got stories for days. So let's begin with your career. You know, when you wrapped up in '98, you played your final game for the Sixers, and by that I do mean game. Tom, do you acknowledge your Sixers career? By the way, before we start,
I have a jersey. I did. I did not miss a shot. I was 2 of 2 and 2 of 2. But Larry Brown says, you know what? Why don't you just come help, stay on staff and be a coach? I'm like, in Philadelphia? I can go to Phoenix and be on the staff. I don't need to be in Philadelphia. But Yeah, it was short-lived. I got traded for what? Marko Milic because he jumped over a car and Brian Colangelo wanted him or something. It was, yeah, it was short-lived.
Yeah.
It was short-lived there, but yeah, it was. There's some stories when I was there with Allen Iverson. Oh my goodness gracious, that guy, holy moly, woo!
What was it like being in a locker room with him?
Oh, he was fun. Loved him to death. But one day, I mean, he missed a bus and he missed the plane and he missed some whatever and I'm like, Alan, I can just swing by and pick you up, for practice. And he goes, why would you want to do that? And I'm like, so you'd be on time. He said, no, then you'd be late. You'd be late. He said, I come out of my house when I want to. There are people there that are ready to drive me. It doesn't matter to me. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to be late, so I'm not going to come pick you up, Alan. Good. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay. Oh man, him and Larry Brown though, it was.
Well, you are talking about practice, Tom. You're talking about practice, not a game.
I'm not shoving it aside, like it don't mean anything. I know it's important. I do. I honestly do. But we talking about practice, man. What are we talking about? Practice? We're talking about practice, man.
That kind of player must have made you not want it to go into coaching and maybe take the broadcasting route, right? Was that what led you down the broadcasting path in your post-playing days?
You know what? I like my summers off, and the thing about my TV is I can go enjoy myself on top of the mountain and chase animals around and fill my freezer up and, do all that kind of stuff. If I was a coach, man, I'll tell you what, those guys are working a lot, and I love my job. I love my gig. But I also do love coaching. I think I could, help guys, be a Mark Bryant kind of a guy, and really, help guys develop what they do out there because I notice all that kind of stuff. But I'm blessed. I've been doing this for a long time, and I love it.
Can I get a close-up with Tom Chambers?
You can't see me.
Oh, no, he's got a monitor. I got a monitor
right there.
And you're bald face right now.
Well, I kind of had an accident.
Oh, you were trimming it and you cut something.
No, I put the clippers up and I forgot the guard wasn't on there, and I just went right there. Right. I'm like, oh man. And once half of it's gone, you just can't go in there because then I would really been made fun of.
Tom, don't worry about it. It's going to grow back when you wake up by tomorrow morning.
You've been 20 plus years now in the media, which is kind of funny.
I am not media. There's no media here involved. No.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
No.
Go ahead. I know what Dave's going to ask you. By the way, go ahead, Dave. Hit him with it.
Well, okay. Well, so I talked to Kevin Ray. And Kevin told me, he said, you got to ask him about the time you guys were doing, you did a pregame show, and then you went and you were watching the game in the green room, and Latrell Sprewell came on, and you said, you turned to everybody and said, man, I wasn't that much of a jerk to the media, was I?
Well, I never.
They said, yeah, Tom, you were.
Hey, dude.
Yes, you were.
I will object to that because I never choked my coach. Never choked my coach. Not one time. No.
But did you choke anybody in the media, Tom? That's the question.
I did not. But when they had a preconceived story, and they wanted me to add to their story, I made sure that I told them the truth rather than their story. Okay? There's so many times they came in there and they didn't like me. I mean, I don't. My family likes me. People who know me like me, and they want to write up crap. I'm like, dude, why should I help you with this? You know what I'm saying? So I had a battle with them for a long time. I really did. And yeah, the media thing for me is just like, I want to tell the story the right way. I don't want to make up some twist or this is what we're talking about. This is what we're doing. I just kind of tell the real stuff,
Well, Tom, were you burned by the media? Was there a specific
Absolutely,
story
100%.
early in your career that's
Yeah.
What happened?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Way back, Jack McCollum with Sports Illustrated wrote something about me being a jerk, and then Steve Kelly up in Seattle did that, and Art, whatever his name was down here in Phoenix, and they were just very, very critical of my game, and yet I was like the best player on the team, and yet they wanted to pick me apart.
I read a writer's critique of him. Said he's a great player. Only problem is he's selfish. Is that true?
Well, it depends on how you define selfish. I've never had a scorer that wasn't selfish. If he's not selfish, he's not going to be a scorer. I can tell you that right now.
Nobody ever played harder than I did. Nobody cared more. Nobody fought more for what I did. And yet I was like, why are you picking me apart? I mean, because I only got 7 rebounds tonight. Can you imagine me talking about the Suns and picking somebody apart because they only got 7 rebounds tonight? Oh, man, I wouldn't be very popular, would I?
Hey, Tom, I talked to Jim Peterson, my broadcast partner for a long time about you.
I'm sorry about that.
And he told me, he goes, man, he goes, yeah, he didn't give me the full story, apparently. Like, full disclosure, before we started taping, Tom told me that that he lit up Jim Peterson and the Warriors for 56.
To Greg Grant, to Chambers, to the hoop. Whammo time! Goes over on the left side to KJ. Off to Tom Chambers, who drives and scores. And that is 40 points. 40 points in the first half for Tom Chambers. Tom Chambers coming out. 56 points, a new single game scoring high.
Jim didn't mention that one.
No.
He didn't. He left that part out.
Why would he mention that?
He did tell me, though. Well, he did tell me, though, Tom. He said, listen, he goes, there's no doubt Tom Chambers should be in the Hall of Fame. And that, he said the other thing is you were a little bit ahead of your time. He said if you were playing in today's NBA, you probably would have shot a lot more threes. You would have been even a higher volume scorer than you were. I mean, 20,000 points in the league is nothing certainly to sneeze at. So I will ask you, though, tying in the media thing, I mean, do you think getting painted in that way, do you think that's hurt you in the Hall of Fame? Because, I mean, you got to be the best guy that's Hall of Fame eligible on the planet that's not in the Hall of Fame.
I don't know why it is. I mean, I was not the most popular guy back then from the media, by the media. Guys who know me liked me. But I agree with Jim, and I thank Jim for saying nice things like that, because today, if you face the basket, they can't put 2 hands on you. They can't put 1 hand on you.
Yes.
They can't touch you. I used to have guys like Lonnie Shelton and Rick Mahorn steer me around with a hand on your body, and it was like if I could get by with that, oh my gosh, if nobody could touch me today, woo! I mean, we used to get freaking cold conked, knocked out, did somersaults coming down because and sometimes it was just a foul or a hard foul. Now it's like you're ejected. I mean, I used to try and get to the rim, because then I knew I would land on my feet. You know what I'm saying? Because if I tried to dunk on people, and I did a lot, I led the league in dunks, many years. It was they would just make sure that I knew that I was there, so I would try to get to the rim. But the game today with me, and I look at a Lauri Markkanen or even a Dirk who played a little bit after me. I mean, guys couldn't get touched, and I'm not saying I was as good a shooter as those guys, because I used to dunk a lot. I had to learn to shoot. Because people backed off of me and said, we're not getting dunked on anymore, dude. You know what I'm saying? So I had to learn to shoot, and I became a good shooter. But today's NBA, oh my gosh. Are you kidding me? They can't touch me? Ha!
Hey, Tom, you were actually drafted by the San Diego Clippers in 1981. Now, you've shared this story with me, so I'm just going to have you tell it again to the people watching. So you get drafted by the Clippers, and the infamous Donald Sterling takes you out to dinner. I think your family may have been there too. Tom, tell everybody what happened. Tell me what happened when the credit card.
His card was declined. His card was declined, and my guy Howard Slusher picked up the tab. I mean, I knew I was in trouble, though, because, when I go to San Diego, all the billboards are Donald Sterling saying, I will make you proud of the Clippers. I will do whatever. And Paul Silas, our first game of the year, he comes running across the floor, wraps his legs around Paul Silas, and I think we won 16 games of the next 81. It was not a pretty season with Donald Sterling down there, man. It was a circus. I mean, we flew coach, because he wouldn't put us in first class. Every hotel we'd go to, we'd have to change the next time because he didn't pay the bill. It was just, and I didn't know any different. I was just happy to be in the NBA playing with really great players. But
sure,
yeah, he was he was an absolute mess. That guy was.
So did you guys know that's why you were changing hotels, or did you learn that later? I mean, you had to know this was fucked up, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, we knew it was Jack.
Even though you were young.
I felt bad for Mike Sheminsky, who was the trainer, because back then the trainer kind of did everything. And we walked into a hotel, and they would not let us in the hotel until he gave them money before we went to the hotel. And I'm like, so I talked to Mike on the side. I'm like, Mike, seriously, does he not pay his freaking bills? He goes, no. Until they sue him, he does not pay. I mean, coming from an ambulance, I mean, the guy, he didn't pay anything. I had to, what do you call, write to the Players Association many times just to get paid from that guy. It was so bad. It was so bad.
Okay, that's crazy. I got to know, though. I got to go back to flying and coach. Like, people don't ever think about that. Like, I can't picture you sitting in a seat and coach. You need a shoehorn to get in there.
Well, you absolutely do. I mean, I got really long legs. I mean, I'm kind of sitting down. I can sit normal with everybody, but I got like 40-inch inseam, and so it doesn't work. And typically back then, the requirements by the NBA were you fly first class. There's only 12 first class seats, okay? So it was 11 players and the coach, the head coach, and then that one oddball rookie sat in the back. But they had to have 2 for 1. So they had to buy, if you were in the coach section, you had to have 2 seats instead of, the one first class. You have to have at least 2 seats. And oh my gosh, it was brutal. It was ugly. I mean,
man,
they complained today about, travel and this and that and the other in the NBA. We'd go to the airport at 5:00 in the morning. You couldn't get nothing but a hot dog. And that was our breakfast. I mean, it's like, and then now they have caviar and lobster on the flights, and we ate a ballpark wiener in the hotel or in the airport. It was brutal.
Right. You had to be thrilled that they decided to keep Terry Cummings and trade you, which leads me to my next question. And Tom, and this in all seriousness, now I have to set this up because I think our younger viewers might not understand what consuming the NBA was like in the early 80s. There was no ESPN Sports Center with highlights from around the league. I grew up in Chicago in the early 80s. The Bulls weren't even on free TV. So if your parents didn't pay for, pay TV, you couldn't watch the Bulls. Right. Network TV, all you got were the Lakers, Celtics, and Sixers. Right. So teams like the Sonics and the Suns and the Jazz, I mean, you didn't see their players. So, Clip, you didn't see these guys. No. So all of a sudden, you're watching the 1987 All-Star game. And there's this big white guy for the Sonics that people are kind of talking about before the game.
Everybody, Tom Chambers tonight. Everybody slam dunk tonight. Everybody slam dunk.
And he takes that game by storm.
Tom Chambers.
And it was a coming out party where all of us, like in the Midwest, and I presume out East, kind of casual basketball fans are like, holy shit, who is this guy?
Chambers for 3. Feeding Chambers. Chambers goes for 3 and hits it.
But it seems to me like that might have been your coming out party nationally. Because of the way people could not consume the NBA unless you played for the Lakers or Sixers nationally. Did you see it as that? And did your life change after that 87 All-Star game MVP? Take me back to that day and that time.
Kind of. I mean, it did. I was a Cinderella story for sure. Ralph Sampson gets hurt, or I wouldn't even have been in the All-Star game. Pat Riley, who could do whatever Pat Riley wanted to do, put me in the starting lineup over a bunch of guys who had been there before, which was really cool, except for I went out and bricked my first 4 shots, and then, I kind of settled in. But it was a different deal. I mean, I'm in the game with Michael Jordan and Larry Bird and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson. I mean, it was a who's list of players that have been doing this for a very long period of time. So it was like, are you kidding me? I mean, I knew I could play, but it was like, running the floor with Magic Johnson, that's a dream, because I love to run. And to have him out there knowing that if I ran, all I had to do was put my hands up and not get hit in the face with a basketball because he was so good at the time. But, yeah, it was a coming out point.
But you didn't just play. You dominated.
Well, I mean, we were good. I mean, we were good. We were down like 10 with a couple minutes left in the game, and he just started pushing, and I started running, and then we needed 2 free throws to go into overtime, and Rolando Blackman knocks those down. So we go into overtime and ended up winning the game. But it was a tremendous day for me and what I did. Our team in Seattle was good that year. It was Xavier and myself and Del Ellis. We all scored over 20 points a game. We had a really good team, and it was kind of a coming out party for the Sonics getting back after the Jack Sikma era and winning the world championship. It was no more downtown Fred Brown or Gus Williams or Jack. It was me and X and Dale. So it was a change of the guard up there, but we got to be really good really quick.
Well, you mentioned the X-Man. I'm curious what he was like to be around in the locker room, because I've heard stories a lot of guys walked around on eggshells when they were around him.
Was he crazy?
He was crazy, but I wasn't scared, so we were close. I do remember a practice one time where him and I were getting into in practice, and I just looked at him, and he looked around. He goes like, tell him to quit looking at me like that. Tell him to quit looking at me like that. I'm like, dude, I'm not scared. I mean, whatever. Come on, let's go. Whatever. But he was crazy, but we got along great. But yeah, a guy like X will test you, and that's okay. But yeah, I didn't take stink off nobody. I was kind of one of those guys that Paul Silas kind of instilled that in me, where I had to, at my position back when, the power forward position was actually a position. Now it's like a stretch 4. Okay, there's no such thing as the power forward, but back then I was a rare person in the power forward position that was a scorer. Power forwards didn't score back then, and so when I'm scoring, I'm going against whoever it might be, Kent Benson or Mahorn or whoever, Lonnie Shelton, whoever it was. And if we got in a fight, we lost 25 points and they lost 4. So it was like, but he always said, I will take care of the fines, but you got to stand up for yourself. So I learned to do that at an early age. And actually my very first practice, if you want to hear a story, I was with the Clippers, and I came in there, Donald Sterling didn't want to pay me, and I finally ended up getting a contract the night before the very last exhibition game, and we had a practice, and I went in there, and everybody wanted to beat on this tall, skinny white guy from Utah. I mean, it wasn't pretty. And the worst culprit of all was Jelly Bean, Kobe's father. Okay, and he was just a jerk, and he was pushing on me, and he was just kind of trying to bully me and trying to do all that kind of stuff. And I tried to be nice, and I was still good, but I was trying to be nice. And the next day in the airport, going to our last exhibition game, Paul Silas was sitting over there in the airport, like we used to. We actually walked through the airport and stuff like that. And he said, "Rook, come here." And I walked over there like, "Oh shit, am I going to get cut? I didn't know. I didn't know what the heck was going on." And he said, "Let me just tell you this right now. If Jelly ever hits you again and you don't knock his ass out, I'm going to suspend you." And I'm like, I'm a fighting some bitch after that. I'm like, dude, you ain't taking money out of my pocket, okay? So Jelly didn't do it anymore after that. It was over. And that's kind of how I learned, and maybe one of the reasons people, thought I was a jerk, because I fought. I fought for our team. I fought for me. I didn't take stuff off nobody. And I'm the guy scoring. I'm the leading scorer on the team, and yet I'm still the guy out there having to kind of control the situation if need be, because they were always trying to, get my mind out of the game. But that was, I can blame Paul Silas for that. And it started with Jelly, who is, how come I can't even think of his name? Oh my gosh. It was just Jelly.
Joe Bryant, who's had the touch on the outside.
Oh my gosh. What a weirdo.
Hey, Tom, a couple more from you before we let you get out of here. You averaged over 27 a game for Phoenix in 1990. So obviously you were a big time scorer for them. So Barkley arrives in 92-93, and obviously was electrifying. That team goes to the finals. You take a different role as a sixth man. How did you reconcile that? Because obviously the team got a whole lot better. Barkley, that was one of the greatest first seasons in NBA history. It electrified a city, electrified a team. But your role, went to sixth man. How was that for you personally and professionally, dude?
Well, I
Do you
mean,
recall?
something had to happen. I knew it would happen at some point in my career, but sitting behind a guy like Charles Barkley, who was, an all-timer at that time even, was fine. I had no problem with that. I loved the group. I loved the team. I loved Charles. I did hate our style of play that year, though. We went from like 120 points a game to 100 because Charles would beat up the basketball for like 22 seconds. And then if he couldn't get a shot off, he'd throw it to us. We'd have to shoot real quick. It's like, dude, we used to run. We had a fast-paced, high-tempo game. Now we got to wait for your big ass to come down the court every time, Yeah, but Chuck was fun. But our style of play went from up and fast and run and lead the league in points to not so much. But we won a bunch of basketball games, and it was fun. And I really did not have any problem doing that because we were so successful. And it just, you got to be versatile, if you will. And it continued me on because after that, when the collective bargaining agreement was such that it was, they released me so they could sign a young AC Green, and Utah knew that I could, come off the bench. So I went up there and had a couple of good years with the Jazz with Carl, coming off the bench for them.
You ended up in Israel at one point. Was that? Did they just throw too much money on the table? What happened there?
It's kind of a weird deal. It was a great experience. I love it. And I'm saying an experience. I love the people. I love the food. Love the country. The basketball was not so great. And we're flying once a week to the European Cup in coach, literally, from there. So that wasn't glamorous at all, but I liked it. And the reason it happened so quickly, the Jazz decided to let me go like a week before freaking the season starts, like late.
Okay.
And rather than wait and milk it, this guy Warren Legary, who represents a lot of people in Europe, said, "Hey, Maccabi would love to have you. It's the best team in Europe. They'll give you this much. You're only gonna have to be there 5 months." And I'm like, "Okay, let's do it." And so then even after that, I came back and I was with Charlotte for a few weeks there too, trying to help those guys out. That's a whole nother story. But I was in Israel for a bit, and it was interesting. Like I say, the basketball not so much, but everything else was tremendous.
Tim, I got one more for you, Tom. And then Kevin Ray told me, he said, "Listen, one of the things about Tom as a broadcaster, he's fantastic, but he gets very, for whatever reason, nervous when he has to talk about himself."
Can't do it.
And he said one time you guys were doing some kind of a highlight package talking about your career, and you started sweating profusely, and they reached to give you a towel, but it accidentally gave you Kleenex instead, and you ended up with Kleenex all over your face on air. What was that your finest hour in broadcasting? What the hell happened
well, I that's a fact. Even when he calls me a legend, I can't handle it. I guess I'm used to people being like calling me a-hole or something. I don't know what the deal is. But so if there's a clip of me, even though I know what it's going to be, I don't know what it's going to be, but I've been there before because it's obviously a clip that happened. I get nervous and I sweat. I cannot watch a game of myself. I can't watch the All-Star game. I will be by myself if I turn on a clip of me and I'll sweat. It'll get nervous for myself. Now, I don't sweat in studio anymore, but back then, if they were doing something, yeah. And our stage manager hands me a napkin to wipe the sweat off, and a chunk of it stayed on my face, like right here. Not all over my face. I had a nice white piece of toilet paper or tissue, whatever you want to call it, hanging from my face. I didn't know it. We come on air, and Kevin's talking, and then he looks right at me. He's like, and I'm like, what do I want? What? I can tell by the way he's looking at me. He's focused in on something. Do I got a zit, or what do I got going on here? I got something hanging out my nose, and I had this. I'm like, so you wipe my face off, and you don't see this big old handkerchief hanging from my cheek? It's like, it was embarrassing. But yeah, I cannot watch a clip of myself. I have to look away and go la 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 la. I can't do it. It's still to this day right now.
Gosh.
I would sweat. They'd totally sweat.
You guys are being really, really humble right now because we have you on the cover of a couple magazines.
I hope we're together.
Denzel Johnson.
Great people.
And,
look at Tom. Tom looks like a
TC
country
Shelton.
singer. He look like, hey, sing me a song.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Tom, here's my last one, then we'll let you go. How are you? It's really the signature play of your career. How often do fans come up to you and want to talk about the dunk over Mark Jackson in 1989?
2-on-1. KJ to Chambers. Jam! Oh, boy. He went right up Mark Jackson.
I make light of it at times. There's some words that have been, used to describe it. I actually have a bronze statue of it. They made me when they retired me. They made a bronze statue of it, so I get to see it here at my house.
Kevin Johnson got a piece of it. Chambers. This place is wild. And Chambers soars over Mark Jackson for that slam.
That was a big game against the New York Knicks. We needed the basket. I had to get to the rim, and I was able to. So it was a big basket for us. I dunked a lot. It wasn't even one of my favorite dunks. I mean, it was one of my favorites, but it's one everybody knows me for. If I go to a high school game, if I go to the mall, if I go anywhere, people are like, Tom Chambers, they look it up, they're like, oh my God, you can see their mouth open up like, what did that guy do, Because that's the first thing that pops up on every search is Tom Chambers dunk. I mean, it's there everywhere, but it's one of those things that it's good because they talk about me a lot. It's also good this year that Devin Booker's breaking every freaking record I ever held because they talk about me a lot. So I guess that's good. They're bringing me up. They're like, who's Tom Chambers? Well, he's that guy that had that record before,
What you teed it up, so I got to ask, what is your favorite dunk then? If that's not your favorite, do you have one that
I used to always tell the guys, I'm like, Roy Hinson was a leading shot blocker in the NBA, and I had some over Manute too because he was like leading shot blocker. But I just love dunking on shot blockers. But I had one where I think it was against the Sixers. I think he was with the Sixers at the time, and I went by him right, and I switched over and I dunked it on him left.
Here's Chambers to the hoop. Oh, my, yes, sir.
I punched it home hard on him, left-handed. And my guys could not find it anywhere, ever. And I kept talking about this dunk. And finally, my guy, oh my gosh, the guy, if you ever go to tc24.com, tc2.com, it's a YouTube station now. And this guy's done some videos of me. He finds stuff. He's bought stuff from Eastern Bloc countries. He had that dunk on one of his videos. So I was killing my people, right? I'm like, so you guys can't find it, but this guy who does these random videos of me has this freaking dunk, okay? So I got to see it on one of my dunk highlight tapes, but it's impressive. Because it's over. All right. It's over a 7-foot guy that leads the league in block shots, not Mark Jackson, who can't jump 3 inches,
All right, TC, man, it's been great, man.
Okay.
Thanks for spending some time with us here on the PressBox Party Podcast. Appreciate it, man. I will see you down the road.
All right, man. Thanks, guys.
Well, how great was that? And we were able to find that dunk over Roy Hinson as well.
Yeah.
Well done by our editing staff here at the PressBox Party. Well, you studied harder than I did in college in the editing class.
Yeah, well, we had listen, you said before we actually started the podcast, nobody cares, but we had a handful of technical issues this week, and it was a little bit of a chore to get that thing on, or it might have been even better. But I always like
that was great.
I like finding the Easter eggs, like the Tom Chamber everybody slam dunk tonight video, it's like the stuff that you can find, the Arsenio Hall stuff. I mean, it's just great.
Well, yeah, I mean, you found him playing over in Israel, right? I mean. And then who knew Tom Chambers was a guest on the Arsenio Hall show? What was that all about? I mean, I knew Tom was big. I didn't know he was that big.
I'm going to guess that was probably right after the All-Star MVP. I mean,
probably. Well, no, because he was with Cotton Fitzsimmons, and Cotton was the Suns coach.
Yeah, well, okay, that's a good point.
Right?
I don't know. So, I didn't find the date on it, but it was hey, Chambers has had a hell of a career. The guy should be in the Hall of Fame. It's shocking to me that he's not. If you look at the 20,000-point scorers in NBA history, pretty much all of them are in the Hall, and the ones that are not in the Hall, and I'm going off the top of my head because I looked it up a while ago, and but the guys that are not in the Hall with 20,000 points right now: Vince Carter, Paul Gasol, and I'm trying to blank on the last one. But the three that are not eligible yet,
and they're going to be. And Chambers was, to be fair, was nominated last year and did not get it. Just didn't make the final step. But I think eventually he will be in. But I'll tell you this: he's a Hall of Fame storyteller. I mean, how about that? Talking about Kobe's dad being a big fat jerk. What's funny is Kobe's beloved now, but don't kid yourself. When Kobe Bryant played, big fat jerk too, right? I mean,
I mean, if
his
anybody watched the Redeem Team documentary, I mean, his reputation coming in was not great. So I didn't even I haven't so we do have a couple of people on the chat that have, my camera was on. So anyway, thanks guys for tuning in, and the people that were on the chat.
That's what the chat was. Hey Dave, your camera's on.
Somebody said, "Hey guys." Rock and Reese said, "Hey guys." So appreciate you guys coming on. You were supposed to man the chat. I couldn't man the chat because of the fact that my camera was on and I was trying to stream.
Well, we're new to this thing. I didn't know I would have been happy to do so. I would have done it. Rock and Reese. Hey guys. So I would have been happy to do that. Hey Reese, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah. So listen, our intent is to do as much live stuff as possible for this podcast. And to have interaction, but it's also the big thing with our show is being able to get these guests, and it's not always going to be like, hey, Tom Chambers, can you clear your schedule at 2:00 Mountain Time to do the show for us? And sometimes maybe they will, sometimes they won't. But it's like if we're going to get a guest like Tom Chambers, hey, when are you available to do it?
Well, also, if you're a viewer of this podcast, let me ask you, the viewer, if you're watching this now, would you rather have a podcast where it's just the three of us talking, or would you rather see an interview like that we record earlier, but then we're able to find the video? So when a guy like Tom Chambers is talking about the dunk over Roy Hinson, we actually have the time to dig that up and show that. I think that makes for a much more enjoyable viewing experience. So if we're doing a show live where you can interact or have a live chat where the interview is live, yeah, that's great. But all that video that you see when we pre-record the interview, we can't. That's obviously not possible. So the benefit of recording the interview, it's just the finished product is so much better when you can go back and you can find the video to support what your guest is talking about. So there are positives and negatives. So we can do the intros and the outros live like we're doing today. Right now we're live, but the interview process or portion of the show can be taped, and then we can enhance that with finding the video to match up what they're talking about, which can provide for a much more enjoyable viewing experience, I think, anyway. So
I think we try to swim in both pools as much as we can.
Well, the other side of doing a live guest is then the audience can chat in with the guest and ask some questions depending on the guest. Right. I mean, so if they're willing to do that.
Yeah, Rock and Reese says that's a great way to do the interview. Appreciate the feedback on that. I think it's a good time to say goodbye. We'll be back on with a new episode next week. And everybody, thanks for watching. And make sure you're subscribing and downloading and doing all the great stuff. We appreciate the support here on the PressBox Party.